So far we've been looking at healing, different types of cells, and we're at the end of the unit. Now we want to just see how does growth and healing look similar and different to each other. So just to think for a second, how do the bones of an adult compare to the bones of a child? So what do you think if we took a picture of a hand for an x-ray of a young person and took it of an older person, do you think there'd be any differences? Would there be a difference in the size of the bones, how they're in the hand, like spacing or anything? So just kind of think about that for a second, and we're going to take a look at an x-ray here of a hand from different age people, from I think it's 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 10-year-old, and an adult. So here we go. So up in the upper left here, we have the bone or the hand of a 3-year-old. Over here is a 4-year-old hand, 10-year-old person hand, and an adult hand. To take a look at these for a couple seconds, just kind of see what you notice, and we'll kind of talk about what we noticed in class. So just take a quick look and see what you see here. One thing I think they've kind of zoomed in on the 3-year-old's hand more. I think they're just kind of trying to make sure the hands are kind of like looking the same size versus being smaller. So the 3-year-old hand is not going to be as big as the adult hand. But what we did notice was if you start looking at the adult hand, bones are filling in like all the spaces. I mean, there's space between fingers and something. But if you look at like around the wrist area, it's pretty much like a couple bones all together. If we go back to the 3-year-old, you can see there's lots of gaps over here. There's gaps between the fingers of the hand and the palm and fingers up here. You can see there's big gaps. Like it looks very broken up. Even when you get down to like around your age for 10-year-old, there's not many gaps. Like you still have gaps between fingers, but like by the lower palm, they're kind of filling in. And as we get to the adult, they've all filled in. So that's one thing we notice, where there's gaps between the bones that are going to connect later on. They're probably smaller too. I mean, a hand of a child is going to be smaller. So the bones are going to be smaller, and the spacing is different. If we look at the 4-year-old, you can kind of see that the gaps are closing up a little bit, not so much space between them. There's more bones down here. This one looks like it's got about 5 bones. This one only had 3. And as we go over here, you can see the gap between the back side of the fingers here in the palm and over here have really closed in right there. They're almost touching like by the wrist now. So we're just trying to figure out like what's going on here. And every time we talk about a gap, it kind of takes me back to when we were talking about healing. So if you get cut, there's a gap in the skin. If you break a bone, there's a gap in the bone. If you tear a muscle, there's a gap in the muscle. And we learned if we have a gap, then the cells divide and they fill that gap. So it looks like growth might involve some part of the same healing process. Take a look at a knee. So we have the knee here. This is the upper leg. Here's the lower leg with its 2 bones. Kneecap, adult, same thing. Upper leg, kneecap, lower bones. And it looks like there's almost like a crack here. It's not. This is not broken. This is the way a child's knee x-ray would look. So it looks like there's a crack here and a crack down here and a gap over here too. So I shouldn't say a crack. It looks like there's a gap. Okay, so we got gaps at the ends of the bones. When we look at the adult, there are no gaps. So it's kind of leading us down that road where if there's a gap, the bones grow to fill it. Okay, and so what doctors do is they call these areas where there's gaps, they call them growth plates, and that's where the new cells are going to form. So we've got some growth plates in front by the kneecap, between the femur and the knee joint here. So these are growth plates, and that's places probably where we're going to see cell dividing going on, cell multiplication. Let's see what else we have here. So if we think that these are places where cells are going to divide and keep growing, where else do we think we would see some growth plates? So we talked about this in class, and we're looking at all the places that are kind of like your leg bones and your hand. So if we got growth plates in the hand, they're probably in the feet. If it's in the knee and the leg bone, we probably have them in the arm bone, shoulder and all that stuff. So here is a drawing of a young child, the skeleton of a young child, and showing with red lines where the growth plates are in the body. So you can see all these red areas are where we have growth plates. So both sides of the arm, the lower arm, both sides of the upper arm, both sides of the collarbone, looking at the ends of the toes, ends of the fingers over here. So we ends of the fingers here, we have growth plates. Toes, we have growth plates. Upper and lower part of the upper leg, both the upper and the lower part of the lower leg. So this, and we had a big question. We weren't sure if they just weren't showing us growth plates in the head, ribs, spine, and hips, or if there aren't any. So we didn't know how to answer that question. Maybe they were just trying to show us how the limbs grow. So that's why we have the arms and the legs only shown. But anyway, we have these growth plates in all the areas that are marked in red. And that would kind of make sense. As you grow older, your arms get longer, your fingers get longer, your legs get longer. And these are the places where we probably would see this cell division going on, this dividing of cells. And for the body parts today, that was all we covered.